Let's see. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Excited for everybody joining us. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes to give everybody enough time. And in the meantime, I'll just do a quick introduction of what we're going to do today and of our guests. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Noah from Planable. I'm customer success here, and I'm super excited to be here with our guest that I'm gonna present in 1 second. But let's start with discussing why we're here today, which is to answer social media agencies and freelancers' big question of how can they price their services correctly and efficiently. Kind of to give you a little bit context about me personally, I actually worked in a digital marketing agency before Planable. That's how I discovered Planable. And I remember from those times, the topic of pricing was always stressful. It always was very difficult to get it just right. And it got confusing. It got confusing really fast. And there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. There's a lot of time wasted. We're never a fan of spreadsheets and mathematical formulas. I mean, I'm not, however, one of our guests here, I think, is, because that's what he does. He works with all these formulas to help us have an easier way to calculate those prices. So that's why we brought in the experts. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion with our guests. We prepared a few questions, but you can jump in with questions in our chat as well. And I'll do my best to make sure we cover as much of them as we can by the end. So without further ado, because I feel like I've talked so much already, I'll introduce our two amazing guests who agreed to join us today. First, we have Emmanuel Martonca. He's our pricing expert and founder of SoftFi, which is a company that helps businesses take their pricing to the next level. And he's the one that helped us, he built the algorithm behind our pricing calculator for agencies. And we're gonna get into that a little bit later. But hi, Manu, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to diving into what not to do in terms of pricing for social media services.
I think everybody's really excited to see what tips and tricks you'll have for us. Yes. And of course, we have Monique Rochkind. I hope I pronounced that as well as I could. Appreciate that. She's social media director at Amas Uno Digital Strategy, which is a digital marketing agency that offers social media services as well. And she's also a longtime Planable customer, one of our favorites. And Monique, thanks so much for agreeing to join us today and talk about pricing with us. I'm glad. I feel like everybody's excited. So I think we can start diving in as people have started joining. Again, feel free to jump in with questions in the chat and we'll make sure to answer them. Monique, I'd like to start with you a little bit and talk first about social media services. And I know you've probably dealt with a lot of customers and a lot of businesses who just ask you to manage their social media presence. But I was wondering, what are the services that you've noticed people ask for the most? Is it like content creation? Is it social media management, reporting, community management? What have you encountered the most?
It's a very good question. To be honest, what we face every day with customers is that they don't usually know what they want. A lot of our customers don't understand social media correctly. So they say, oh, manage my social media, and they don't understand what that entails. Mm. So we make it our business to speak to every possible client and ask them, what do you want? No, because what are your objectives? That's like the biggest thing that we have to define when we have a new customer, because some of them measure social media by likes, you know? Mm-hmm. And they want a lot of likes, but they want to be able to sell their products or services online. So we say, okay, so that's two different things. We could do a paid strategy to get new customers, or we can focus on getting new engagement and likes. So we offer we used to offer, what I want to say, we used to offer like all separate things. We used to say, okay, you want just presents, we give you presents, we want this. But we noticed that left a gap in our services. So having a presence is not enough. You need to have a presence and you need to have a strategy behind the presence. So what we offer to our clients is we try to educate our clients by saying, okay, what we're going to do for you is we're going to offer you posts, of course, on Facebook and on Instagram, but we're going to offer you a strategy behind those posts. And we're going to offer you a strategy for advertising. If that is your objective, this is what you have to get. So we offer all of that.
That sounds great. You mentioned, educating the customer in a way, kind of making sure that they know what social media is. And kind of connected to that in a way, Manu, I was wondering for you, when you're meeting with agencies and businesses that are at the beginning, what's the first steps that you educate them on when it comes to pricing? What do you usually ask them in the beginning, just as Monique was, asking them, what is it that you want? What's some of the questions that you would have?
Yeah, it's typically it all starts with the same question: what do you want? And for pricing and strategy, that means what are your business objectives? And here it's clearly that if you are after volume and if you think you can sell to many customers, or if you have a big team and you want to maximize the volume of the activity that you deliver, then you're going to price in one way. If you want to maximize your revenues, then you're going to set your prices differently. And if you want to maximize profits, then again, you're going to choose a different way to do pricing. And so that's always the starting point. Unfortunately, most people don't really know what their business objectives are, or didn't document them, or they change every month. So that's usually an important aspect to clarify, to document. And ideally, you would have an objective which is quantified, which is related to some sort of financial measure, and which is valid for the next at least 6 to 12 months. If it changes every month, then you're going to need to change your pricing strategy as well every month. And then it's not going to be efficient, and you're not going to get the results you're looking for. So that's one important aspect. Another one, and obviously here it depends a lot on the level of quality that you want to offer, or on the level of experience that you already have in your team. But most of the time, I would start from trying to uncouple time and pricing. And that's the biggest hurdle, and that's the biggest problem, because most customers are used to asking for how much does it cost per hour, per day. They find this measure where they try to unify and to normalize what they receive from different potential providers, agencies, because they want to compare. And they end up comparing price per hour or price per day, which a lot of times have nothing to do with quality or with the results they're going to get. So because most agencies have entered this game and they answer to a question like that, what's your price per hour, and they give a rate, then obviously that creates problems further in the project if you end up working with a client. So that's one of the things I would typically look at and try to understand why it makes sense for you as an agency to not link your pricing to your time. As a principle, you might have exceptions, you might have projects where it makes sense to do that, but it should not be the default. At least it should be a conscious decision to choose that, but not just the default because the customer asked for them.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Monique, I know you were nodding, and I'm sure I feel like you've experienced some of what Manu was explaining. And, I know your agency has been quite for a long time, is really established. And I was wondering what were the difficulties that you had in deciding on a pricing strategy in the beginning, or more recently, if what Manu was talking about pricing per hour, was that something that you were considering? What were the little things that made it a little bit difficult?
I completely agree with Manu. And we don't actually, we have certain things that we charge per hour. But our main packages, so when we offer you social media strategy, it's one package and it's a pricing per month. So it's on a retainer. We get a monthly retainer and we do all the amount of work we agreed to on the contract that we give our clients for that retainer. So if it takes us 60 hours a week or it takes us 20 hours a week, that depends on us, how efficient we are. But then they ask sometimes for things that go outside of what we offer normally in the package. So say, for example, I'm doing their social media, but they contracted a website, a webmaster that's not from our agency, and they have a problem with the website that they can't fix. So then we say, okay, then we can fix it for you. It's going to take us 3 hours, and this is how much we're going to charge you. So for those things, it's okay. But definitely for social media work, we don't charge by the hour because, as I said, it really depends on, it's a lot of work. We understand that, and we try to be as efficient as possible. And we don't think it's worth it to charge by the hour. It's much better to have a monthly retainer.
That's super interesting. I think, yes, those are the two biggest ways agencies, especially doing social medias, are gonna price, either by a monthly retainer or an hourly fee. I know I've encountered a lot of the monthly fee strategy. And I'm not sure that's the right word. And Manu, I'd like you to help us a little bit with talking about the difference between the pricing strategy and pricing model. We talk a little bit about that in our social media pricing calculator, but I'm not sure if everybody has had a chance to check it out. So I'd just like to give you the opportunity to explain those concepts a little bit.
Yeah. To simplify it a lot, the pricing model is what your customers see when you present your services and your financial proposal. Whether you put it publicly on the website, let's say some basic packages, these are the services we offer, and there is a price per hour, per month, per project, fixed price. Whether you want to, when you choose to have public prices for some predefined packages, or you don't do that publicly, you just present the options, and then when you talk to each customer, you make a custom pricing for each of them. That's your pricing model. The pricing strategy is the decisions you make at certain moments in time, ideally, again, not every month. So normally one strategy, if you decided on a business objective that next year you want to increase revenues, then the pricing strategy is a consequence of that. And unless you change your objective, it makes sense not to change your pricing strategy and to stick to it to see the results. And fundamentally, you can look at three types of ways to do pricing, starting from the strategy level. One is to try to maximize your profits. That's a strategy of profit maximization, meaning that for each customer, you try to get a price as high as possible as you can. Yeah. Typically, this means that you will not have public prices, because if you make public prices, then you are limited to the amount of negotiation that you can do with each customer. Another strategy is to maximize volume, is to do market share penetration, to try to, for some reason, let's imagine that you have a very big team and you are able to do some types of services very efficiently. You can maybe automate it, or you develop your own tools, or you can outsource the work to a much cheaper country. Then it makes sense to try to occupy as much as a particular market. We're not talking about global markets here. We can talk about local markets or certain niches, certain industries. I don't know, I can imagine in any country or in a bigger city, a social media agency trying to position themselves as the agency to go to for restaurants. And as long as those restaurants don't have an issue that competitors might be working with the same agencies, in some industries this is an issue, in others it's not. So you could have a strategy to try to maximize your market share in that niche, in that sector. And a third strategy is when you try to maximize your revenues. You just try to price in a way that you don't maximize each contract, each transaction. At the same time, you're not so cheap that you want to work with everyone anywhere. So you try to find a balance to maximize your revenues overall. So these are three approaches which are typically you cannot do all of them at the same time. So you either decide that in the next 12 months, I want to maximize profits or revenues or volume. Yeah? And then any other decision you make regarding the pricing model, typically the pricing metric, which is per hour, per activity, fixed price, retainer, any decision you make is a consequence of that strategy. Yeah?
I was wondering, we had a question here if, so the pricing model is what the client sees, right? Whether it's on your website or you send a proposal to them. And maybe they have questions, they don't really understand how you got to that pricing model. Should you share your behind the scenes of the strategy with them or not necessarily? What would you advise on that?
The short answer is no. The longer answer is between the pricing strategy, which is a decision that you might take at one moment in time, and the pricing model, which is basically what the customers see. The intermediary level is the pricing system, which comprises the pricing model, where it's what the customers see, but you also have some aspects which the customers don't see, which might be your pricing calculator, the way you determine the price levels, any discounting levels that you might be prepared to do, any specific rules that you have, for example, for customers in industry, healthcare, we charge these levels of pricing. For customers in education, we charge lower levels. If we work with an NGO, we are ready to do something for free every month. Or yeah, all these aspects are part of the pricing system that it makes sense to document them so that everyone in the team is aware. And even if you're a solo owner working with a small team and you're the only person involved in pricing, it still makes sense to put it on paper, because the moment you document it and you think about it, you might do things a bit differently. Yeah, so that's the pricing system. When you get a question from the client, why is the rate so high? Or why is it per activity and not per hour? Or in 99% of the time, the answer should come from the customer's perspective and not from internal perspective. So whatever answer you give, it should be something related to the value you provide to them, to something that is related to their context, their situation, and not your internal calculations. And not because those calculations are evil or manipulatory or whatever in any sense. It's just that any internal view that you have doesn't mean anything for the client. And even if they ask about it, it doesn't mean that it will convince them or they care about it. And the simplest way to look at this is costs. Obviously, cost is one of the factors that will determine your prices. It shouldn't be the main one, but it's there. It has an impact. Your customer doesn't care about your costs. If you charge them 1,000 for something, whether that's dollar, euros, doesn't matter. Yeah? And then you go and say, you know what, this month, one of my employees asked me for a big raise. My costs increased a lot. The customer said, I don't care. The quality you delivered was the same as the previous month. The fact that you had to pay a higher salary is not my problem. It's your problem. It's your business. You have to manage it. Well, in the same way, you should be able to say, if this month I was able to do something faster, cheaper internally, I'm not going to decrease the price because I did that. I'm going to keep the margin because it's my prerogative as a business owner and as a business manager to try to be more efficient to increase my margins. So in that case, I shouldn't decrease the price just because my costs went down. Yeah? So it's the same. Any explanation you give or any argument you give, it should not be internal. It should be something that is from the customer's perspective, so that you can justify whether a higher price or some payment terms or anything else that they are questioning.
Yes, I think that was beautifully put. And I love the part of putting yourself in the customer's shoes in a way. When they have questions, you should answer with their mindset in mind. I wanted to move a little bit forward and talk about, we talked about the difference between strategies and models. And, I mentioned in the beginning, when we talk about pricing, there's a lot of things to think about, like the competition, your client's budget, your experience, and so on. And Monique, I was wondering for you, what's the most common situation in which agencies can find themselves when a client wants amazing results, but with a not so amazing budget? I'm sure you've encountered that at least once, to put it nicely. So what do you think is the best way to tackle this?
This is a great question also, because our agency is located in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, which is a small town. And we started working with small local businesses to try to get there, to try to get out there and get more customers. And this is the first thing we always encountered was, I have a very, very small budget and I want to get, 30 new customers per month. So we have had to be very, very creative. That's especially, well, we started out being very creative. We are still very creative, but the reality now is that, for example, organic posts really don't have that much of a reach. So we've had to, again, re-educate our customers to say social media is not the same as it was 5 years ago. It's not the same as it was 3 months ago. It's constantly changing. So it's not like, oh, my friends are going to see my posts on Facebook anymore. It's like a full marketing strategy behind everything that happens on social media. So to not go so much off topic, when they have a very, very small budget, we have to be very selective and very creative and try to do, just creative actions to get more interaction and use the budget wisely to reach in segmenting to reach the proper audiences. But it's becoming more and more difficult with all the EOS changes and everything. So we have to get creative. That's the bottom line.
I love that. There's a lot of creativity in social media, starting from pricing. It's not, the first thing you think about, but definitely that's involved there as well. And on this topic, Manu, I was wondering, what's your opinion on this? Like, should you adjust your prices depending on the potential client's expectations or budget? How should you handle that?
You can adjust, of course. Sometimes you don't have a choice, because if you don't have a pipeline of projects that you can start tomorrow, at some point you're going to accept a project at a lower price, even if you don't really like it, on a temporary basis. When that happens, there are some things that you can do to ease your life later. Yeah. First of all, don't do it as a discount. Yeah. Even if somebody comes in and says, okay, you post these activities for this price, I cannot afford it. To work with you, I need a discount. Instead of saying, yes, we're going to give you a discount, the answer should be, okay, we can do something for a lower price, but we're also going to reduce the quality that we're delivering. So that if ever they can afford more, you have a way to increase the size of the budget or the monthly retainer or whatever the model is, or at least that you don't over deliver for something, so that you create a lot more value than what you're capturing back. Now, so that's the first step. Anytime somebody asks for a reduction in price, obviously do it, but also reduce the quality that you deliver proportionally. Or maybe not exactly the same. Maybe if they want a 30% discount, you don't reduce by 30% the effort, you reduce it by 20%. Yeah, but always reduce something. This is one aspect. Another one is, if you have this conversation with one client, you do it like this, and then there's a second and the third and a fourth, then you need to go back to your own strategy and do your own segmentation and maybe find customers who can afford to pay more for the same quality that you deliver. Because if you have too many times this happening, it means that your targeting is not optimum, and it's a never-ending struggle there, because you're not going to be able to convince them. Yeah. Another way to manage this is, this depends a lot on what experience you have with a certain market, or also the type of customers, but it can work where you can start with a smaller budget and introduce some performance-based measures, so that once it starts working for them and they see the results, obviously at the beginning they will say, I don't trust it, I don't think it will work, I cannot pay for this. okay, no problem. We'll start. We'll work 1 month. This is the price. We're going to reduce it by 20% to come within your budget. But then if this, and this happen, then you have to accept to increase the budget. And if they don't, then you have a reason to not continue, because then it means that they don't appreciate the quality. They're not ready to pay for quality, even if they could afford it. Yeah. And that's where you need to work a bit, and it's more than just a negotiation. It's actually, you need to be very firm and assertive and say, okay, for yourself, first of all, and say, if you can afford to pay more, but you don't want to, then it means we're not the right provider for you. Yeah. And if that doesn't work, then you need to find customers who can afford to pay more from the first project.
I was wondering, we have a question here, and I was wondering if what you were talking about would also apply, if you really need to bring new business or you're struggling with cash flow. I'm guessing, I'm just wondering if the strategy should be the same, where you still very clearly set up the boundaries and the value of your project, even if it's lower.
Of course, you have moments, and cash flow is one of those factors that play a role, where any price is good as long as it brings in some revenues. Yeah? And I've done it, Monique has done it. Anyone in this position at some point in time has taken a decision to work for a client for a much lower price, even knowing well that you're going to be below cost, just to get in a project and get in some revenues. Individual projects like this don't matter in the end. The exceptions like this need to be exceptions. Mm-hmm. As long as they are not more than, 5-10% of the projects in 1 year, no problem, no harm done. This becomes a problem when it's 30-40% of your projects, which means that it's not an exception anymore, it's the rule. And again, the rule itself is not an issue. The problem is that it creates expectations. And those customers might recommend you to someone else because you do a great job. And those new customers, new prospects will come with lower expectations of a price. And then you cannot get out of that cycle. Yeah, so that's why, even if you do it, you have to do it in a way that it doesn't create an expectation that it's going to be the same next time.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't set a precedent for all future.
Yeah.
Got it. We have another question, Monique. I would like to address this to you because you mentioned you have a monthly fee, right, for your social media services. This is what you found has worked best for you. And I was wondering, based on the question that we have here, which was asking if you have a client that has a lot of, FaceTiming involved, so there's a lot of meetings with them, is that included in the pricing package, or do you at some point price that separately? Have you ever encountered a customer where, you find out the involvement you first estimated is becoming more than you first agreed upon?
That is actually a thing we are going through right now, which is very interesting as well. So we have a wonderful new client. I'm very happy, but yes, they require a lot more time than was agreed upon. We even included in our contract exactly what their fee includes, which is 1 monthly meeting, 1 monthly report. We are very clear, but we are finding that we spend at least an hour every day on emails, on calls, so it's taking up a lot of time. And we are also rethinking our model with this particular client. It's a very good client. We are focused now on the hotel industry and on real estate, but we find that these clients especially require a lot more of our time. Mm-hmm. And especially because they always want to they don't want to talk to the person who is doing the design or whatever. They always want the director's time, which is also, we need to figure out the pricing and the cost on that. At this point, we are not charging extra for an extra meeting or an extra phone call, but this is something we my partner and I have sat down and said, okay, for starting January, we need to incorporate this into the new contracts and say any meetings outside the scheduled time are going to be charged. But this is also really difficult because I understand that people understand that a lawyer will charge for, every 15 minutes of a call. But when they say, the social media strategist is going to charge me, well, it's time. And it's time I'm taking away from other clients or other situations that I have to work. So this is actually a question for Manu. How do we manage this?
Yeah, Manu, do you have any tips on this, how to handle these types of situations?
It's really important that this is managed proactively. And the way to do that is when you calculate your prices, and this is something we've done with the pricing calculator. So one of the questions in the pricing calculator is, how much effort do you expect to spend on this client? And obviously you'll never know for sure. Yeah? But you need to have this question when you make a proposal at the very beginning. Ask yourself this question and have some levels predefined either in your Excel or in your head, which says, for this client, because we worked with clients like this, and clients like this can mean many things. Yeah, it can mean the size of the company. For example, if you work with a very big company where you have multiple people involved, marketing manager, social media manager, I don't know, a project manager, site manager for a specific industry, then by default, it means you'll have to spend more time because you need to coordinate between them. You'll get conflicting requests. You have to sync with them and so on. So by default, if it's a large company, you have to expect that you'll spend more time. Sometimes companies like this can mean family-owned companies, which are used to a more personal relationship. Yeah, even if they don't actually need something from you, they just need to hear from you at least every week, if not every day. They're gonna message you on WhatsApp. You're not gonna say, I'll charge you for time on WhatsApp. Yes, you cannot do that. And a lot of times, the opportunity here is that this is what justifies a lot of the value in their heads. So I wouldn't try not to do it. Yeah, I wouldn't push them away to not do this, but I would incorporate it in the pricing from the beginning so that I have this in my price calculator. And if I expect and adjust the pricing just based on this criteria. So the more time I expect to work with them, the higher the price should be. And the thinking here is that obviously when you calculate the price, there are many, many factors that go in there. Yeah, but each individual one might not make a big difference. So the easiest way to think about it is if somebody would agree to work with you for $1,000, let's say in Mexico, for a monthly retainer, because you explain to them and you show them portfolio and they saw results and they think that you will do a good job for them, do you think they will not do it for 1,100? A lot of times the answer is, yes. They will do it. 10% will not make a difference. The difference is in the communication, in the packaging, in the value discussion. Yeah? The price itself, 10% will not change. But that 10% for you can mean the difference between being profitable or not on a project. Yeah? When multiplied over multiple projects, over multiple people, over 1 month. Yeah. So that's why when you make the price calculation, you have to take into account as many factors as possible and adjust accordingly. Yeah. So what determines the rate is not only who's working on the project, how many hours we're going to put in, but it also is going to be impacted by how much hand holding do we expect to have to make. Yeah. And that should be a driver to increase your price or to decrease it. Yeah, it might be that a customer, I don't know, I can imagine working with a technology startup and having to work with the engineers in that startup. Let's say the co-founders are engineers, and they will be very hands-off. They will just communicate by email, send you some questions, you answer, they're happy, they move on, no discussion. Yeah? For those, maybe you can reduce your standard price because you have to spend less time. Yeah, if you think it makes sense. So it goes both ways.
That's great. That's great advice. Monique, you find it as well?
Very good advice. And you are totally right. It would be very awkward and difficult to say, I charge you for this phone call, but we really need to incorporate it in the price. And because we do spend a lot of time communicating, that's part of our biggest services. always being there for the customer, being face to face, even though.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's the whole point is that because they value this, it also means that it's one of the drivers that will justify a higher price in their mind. Yeah. But you have to position it like that, and you have to use it in your sales process as an argument to work with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That was amazing, and I see people in the chat also really appreciated that advice. And it was a question I feel everybody that works in social media encounters exactly what we described with customers, that they expect you to be there, and hand holding was the perfect way to put it. Another question we have is a little bit related with what you mentioned, Monique, is that you found you're doing packages, right? You found that was the better option for in your particular case. We were wondering, have you ever tried, or before, having a list of prices, or in that package, do you actually list each component of that package, of that bundle, or have you not tried that?
We tried a lot of different options from the very beginning. What we do now is give them one price, but we list out exactly what we're going to do. So strategy, planning, a plannable calendar where they can go in and see their work, the report, everything we do, it's listed out. Whether we include photography or not, depending on the area and the whatever. We tried at one point giving them a la carte, we used to say. So this is social media a la carte. So you choose what you want. If you just want 3 posts, we design 3 posts for you. But we realized it wasn't really working for us, because if you just give a client 3 posts to load on their social media, they don't really see a change in what's happening. And they end up saying, oh, this agency is not working for me. They just, they charge me so much and they just give me 3 posts. So we've gotten to a point now where we say, this is what you need in order to see a change. If you really want to, again, we start by the objectives. If you want to improve your presence online, if you want to get more customers, this is what we recommend. Do you want this? And if they don't want the whole package, then we don't take on the client, because it's going to be, they're going to end up being unsatisfied with our work and fire us within a few months. So we say, we give them the whole package regardless. If they just want design, they can go to a designer, or they can go to an external person.
I was wondering, Manu, to hear from your experience, is doing this in packages sort of a better practice, just because it gives the client the sense that it's also kind of a deal, like you get more things included, rather than having everything listed out. Have you experienced that? Is that kind of a sort of something you've seen with clients, or it depends on the services you offer or the clients as well?
Typically depends, and I don't think this is an industry where this effect will be the most important. The fact that they get the list and they feel that there's a better deal because they don't have them separately. I don't expect that that's the main reason why this works. The main reason why this works is one, simplicity, that it's just easier for them to understand. Also, the fact that they feel it might be something custom for them, personalized to their needs, so they have more trust to work with you. One thing I would do differently, and I've seen this in many instances, and it can work very well for services like social media, is that anytime you make a proposal with a package, just as you described, Monique. So typically you would discuss with the customer, you make a plan, draw up some objectives, and then you can create a package of what they need, and what would make sense for them. The change I would make if I were in your shoes, I would always give them 2 options, even if they don't ask for it. So that, let's say that you have, 10 items that you can list based on the discussions, and you define that costs $1,000 per month as a retainer. Let's say there's an initial one-time project where you do the strategy, where you make the whole planning, That's a one-time $3,000, and then it's $1,000 per month. Yeah. I would always prepare a second option. And here, the reason to do this is that one, when you go with one price, basically you need to be very, very close to what they're looking for to not risk losing the project. Yeah. Either you can be too expensive or you are too low based on what they were expecting, and then basically you're losing money because you could have charged a bit higher and you lost that. Yeah. So the moment you prepare two options, what will happen is that you will create, either you go in with a lower cost option if you feel that what you're going to propose risks being too much for them, and then you go preemptively with a lower cost option, so that if they ask for a discount, you don't give them a discount, you just say, okay, if you don't have the budget, we can do this for this money. And it's not the discount is 2-3%, it's not 30%, because you already created a second version. Other times it makes sense to create a second option which is actually higher than what they asked for, because if you don't think that there's a risk, then thinking it's too high, the normal version, then you can go in and present a more expensive version, because this will create automatically some potential for upselling later, even if they don't buy it right now. It shows them what's the next step, and if this is successful, what more they can get. But even more importantly, it makes the normal version cheaper, because you give them something which is more expensive, and then this one will just look like it's a better deal. In this case, the better deal will work as a mindset, because they just see a higher number there. And obviously that's higher because it has more services attached to it. But always that difference in price should be higher than your costs, difference in costs, yeah? So that you have a higher margin on that. And you'll be surprised that a lot of customers will choose the more expensive version.
That's amazing advice. Actually, I'm thinking like the plus package and the extra plus package with unlimited phone calls and WhatsApp messaging.
Yeah, that's one way to solve the number of meetings and the time spent. Yeah, instead of, because if you don't know exactly how much time you're going to spend with them, you create two packages where the difference between them is exactly this: how much time they have in meetings. And then you make a version where it's 2 hours per week. And then the other version is with 6 hours per week. And then even if they choose the 2 hours per week and they need more, at least you have a way to go back and say, you know what, you chose this. So it was your decision to go for 2 hours per week. If you want more, look, in the past 3 weeks, we've done at least 6 hours per week every week. We're happy to do that, but we have other projects, we have other commitments, we're happy to work with you, we like you, we have a good relationship, but there is a limit. We either go to the next package and you pay for that time, or we try to reduce together the amount of time that's needed. And then a lot of times this can work very well without creating any pushback or any negative impression on the client side.
Any friction.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I'm reading here the comments. This is genius, amazing. So I feel like, Manu, that was straight to the point, really, really helpful for everybody joining us.
To take this further, so you can do this on any topic that is critical, that you feel is important for the client, because the difference between the packages can be anything. It can be time in meetings. It can be, I don't know, number of ideas that you present for each campaign. It can be, you can create this difference on multiple levels depending on the client and the situation.
That was amazing. I love the reactions here as well.
Very eye-opening.
I wanted Monique to talk a little bit about, it's not a secret, you're an active user of Planable. Sorry for fishing for a quick plug here. But the reason why I bring this up, because I'm wondering if you include this tech costs, this tool costs into your price, and if you build them into your fee, do you explain it to your clients, or are they just, you include them behind the scenes?
I don't I love Planable. I'm happy to plug. It's become such a useful tool. It really is a big time saver. And I do take the costs of Planable into consideration. I don't explain to the customer that I'm going to charge them for the Planable workspace, but I do take it into consideration, and I have it in the proposals, especially in Mexico. For some reason, even big clients are not used to working with a platform. A lot of our bigger clients were asking us to send them like PDFs of the monthly plan, and then they look at the PDF and then they send it back, and it's such a waste of time. So again, we have to educate the clients and tell them this is a wonderful platform where you can just go and click and look at how the post will look when it goes live. So we included in the initial proposal and say that we're going to give them a strategy and give them a monthly calendar on Planable. And we ended up doing a little manual so that they know how to go in and check, because we also have to do it. So yeah, definitely it has been an amazing tool. And our customers sometimes are a little bit slow, the clients, in learning how to use it, but once they get the hang of it, they love it. It's a time saver for them as well.
Thank you so much for the nice words. Yeah, I was just curious about if you include that in your pricing, because again, that's a cost for you, and the whole idea of using a tool is to be more efficient, right, and save time. So Manu, what are your thoughts on this? Can technology and tools be a competitive advantage that you can use for, should it contribute to pricing, and should it be presented as such?
It can contribute, it should be taken into account, but I wouldn't present it as such, in the sense that this is one of the things that you can do to be more efficient, which means that it makes sense to move away from hourly billing and hourly charging, because the moment you find a way, whether it's a process, a tool, a method to do something faster, quicker, better, then you should be able to capture some of that value back. Yeah, and if you present it in too much detail and you present that as a reason to buy from you, then you also have to give it away. The pricing, you cannot justify a higher price anymore. Yeah, so I would, to simplify it to the maximum, yeah, we use Planable. We are much more efficient. Once we do that, we have two options. Either it means that we, with the same team, let's say we have 8 people in the team that work with clients right now, we start using Planable, which means that we will be more efficient. So probably at least one person out of the 8 will have some time freed, yeah, over the entire team. So you either choose to let that person go, but you're not going to do that, because then it creates an opportunity to get even more clients, so that with the same number of people, you can work with more clients and get higher revenues. Yeah. So there's no reason to say that to a client or to justify higher pricing from a client. The consequence will be that for every hour of work that you spend in 1 month, you will be able to earn more as a business overall. Yeah. So the tool, not only that it pays by itself, but it actually brings you more revenues just by using it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense the way you put it, and I think it's super clear. We had another question, Monique. We mentioned in the beginning, when it comes to pricing, there's a lot of things that you take into consideration, your experience, time, and also competitors' price can be one of the things to look at. Were you looking at that when you decided on your pricing strategy? Did you do a little bit of market research, so to speak, of what other agencies were pricing?
Yes, we definitely see what other agencies are pricing, and also in our area, because it's very different. We live in Mexico, but it's very, very different what agencies charge in Mexico City than what we charge in Playa del Carmen. So even though we work with tourism industry and they usually, it's incredible. You wouldn't believe how small budgets they have for this. So they could work with a big agency in Mexico City, or they choose to work with us. We are a much smaller agency, but somehow we provide the same quality work as a big agency would. But we can't charge the same prices because of the area we are at. So we had to take into account our competition, but our local competition, And we do have some clients outside of Mexico. So we work with UK and Colombia and the United States. And we could not offer them competitive, we offer them competitive pricing because we don't have the highest rates as they do over there. So that's why they choose to work with us.
Manu, I know you also are an adept of there's a lot of things to take into consideration. Is there like one thing that you would find is more the North Star of what you should be considering when you're pricing, or do they all have, the different level of importance, but still, they weigh the same when you're creating your pricing?
They weigh the same, but in different ways. So the three big factors that we have to look at is costs, competition, and the customers themselves. And typically, companies do a cost-based pricing where they just calculate their costs at the margin, and then that's the price. And that's almost always suboptimal, because either you're going to be too expensive because you have high costs, so you're not going to be competitive, and you're not going to get any projects, or you are competitive because you are productive, efficient, you have a lot of experience, in which case your prices will be too low and you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. So just looking at costs is never enough. Cost will push you up. Yeah, obviously they will force you to set your rates at a certain level, but up to a limit, because beyond that point, okay, you covered your costs, so that's it. You don't have to do anything more. When you look at the competition, typically it pushes down. Yeah, the more competitive the space, the more you look at what others are doing, you feel a pressure to decrease your rates to try to win projects. When we look at customers, the first impression would be to think that actually customers are also pushing down, because obviously they want to pay less if they can. But a lot of times it's actually the customers that is going to pull the prices up. Yeah. Because if you can justify value, if you can convince them that you can deliver quality, if you can convince them that you can do better quality than someone else, that will be a reason for them to pay more. And especially if you give them options all the time, you will see that a lot of times they will choose the more expensive version, even though they say from the beginning that they have a small budget and they cannot afford and so on. In the end, they will still choose the more expensive version. Yeah. So the approach would be to only look at costs to determine your baseline, to say, okay, below this price point, we cannot work. Yeah, we'd better close shop and go home if we don't charge at least this. Yeah, so this is the baseline. But that's the only thing that you have to look at costs. From beyond that point, costs don't matter anymore. Yeah, what you have to look at is try to maximize based on customer value. And then look at also the competition from time to time to make sure that you're not completely out of the market. But I wouldn't focus too much on the competition. Yeah? I wouldn't let the competition set the rates. That's also not the right approach.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration. The pricing calculator that we've created with the amazing help of Manu here, who did the whole algorithm behind, goes through all of these categories. So it takes into account a lot of these things, your experience as well, how many people are involved, how much time you're expecting to work with, to spend on that certain client. So all of the topics that we've described. So definitely give it a look and see how that works. We're nearing the end. So Monique, I wanted to make sure and ask you if you had any questions for Manu specifically, just to make sure you get those addressed. I know we already addressed some of them, but just wanted to make sure if there was anything on your mind.
I'm super grateful, and I love that. We're going to put that into action starting January 22. The giving the 2 packages and giving them an option. I think that will be very helpful. And no, in general, this has been enlightening. So thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this.
Yes, it was our pleasure, and it was so helpful to hear from somebody that works in an agency that actually deals with finding the right social media prices with customers that have a lot, they come with their own expectations. So that I think was super useful for everybody here with us today. And we really appreciate that. Manu, you had amazing insights. I told you we already got amazing feedback from everybody. And so that's why, again, I remind you, you can check the pricing calculator. I think it's going to be super helpful. We have, we have this recorded, so we'll be happy to share it with everybody that joined with us today. But if there are any other questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to offer more insights from Manu. And I guess just kind of at the end, I was wondering, Manu, if you have any final tips and tricks, any like golden rules that social media agencies and freelancers should just keep in mind when they start pricing their social media services.
Yes, there is one thing that I would do and that I've done when I was in your place selling services that made a huge difference, but it's very difficult, which is to never give the price with the project plan. So always try to first present the project plan, get an agreement on what is the scope of the work, and only afterwards, in a separate meeting with a separate document, attach a price to it. Because when you do that, when you don't do that, yeah, typically what happens now is that customer comes in, they ask for something, you make a plan, you give them a price because that's what they asked for. Typically, they want the price from the first meeting without even discussing about what you're going to do. And what happens is that they push back on the price. But a lot of times, it's not that they cannot afford it or the price is too high. It's that maybe their needs are different, or they want different things, or they were expecting different things to get. So that's why it makes sense to first discuss the plan, the scope of the work, get an agreement on that, and then the price is just a consequence on that. And if they agreed with the plan, there's a much lower risk that they will not agree to the price, unless they really cannot afford it, in which don't want them anyway. Yeah?
Exactly.
But it's not a negotiation so much anymore. So in that way, okay, you agreed with the plan. This is the price. You cannot afford it. Okay, then we have to go back and change the plan to change the price. We cannot change just the price. Yeah, but for that, you need to, again, to uncouple them. You need to present them in two different moments, even if it's, I don't know, 2 hours difference between them or something, if they are really in a hurry. But it always makes sense to first discuss the plan, agreed, and then only calculate the price and send it. And I'm sure if you do this consistently, you're gonna see a big difference in the way you get your success rate in proposals and the way you talk to clients.
This is amazing. Thank you. This is super good advice.
Thank you, Manu, so much. You can find a social media pricing calculator. We have it in the chat as well. It's linked. It's on our website, planable.io/social media pricing calculator. I know it's a mouthful, but you'll see banners for it. I think it's very hard to miss. I want to thank our guests so much for joining us tonight, this morning, wherever you are. It was super insightful. I feel like it was a great experience for everybody. We got answers to a lot of like big questions about how to get started with social media pricing and what are the few things to really look at and how to get it across to clients in a way that it maximizes your chances to get the price that you want. So thank you, everybody. It was lovely to meet everybody and to discuss. And yeah, I hope everybody has a great rest of their day, and we'll be sure to get this recording out to everybody to make sure all those tips get to you.
Thank you.
Everyone, all the best.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.